Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. How are you doing today? Hope you are having a sunny and drama-free day. Ready for some new stories from Ask a Lawyer? Let's go to the first one, about OP's ex, who demands OP gives more money to their daughter, but at the end, OP finds out that OP's fiance is behind all that. Listen to the story to find out how, and of course to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 36 male, have one child, Melissa, 14 female, with my ex, Jane, 39 female. We were together for about a year when she got pregnant and expected me to marry her because of it. While I did agree that it would be best for us to move in together, I never said that I would marry her, and she didn't tell me that she expected me to propose until her final month of pregnancy, and she yelled at me for not proposing sooner. Due to the lack of communication and mass assumptions, I set the record straight and said that I wouldn't marry a woman that I've only known for less than 2 years just because she was having my baby. Cue the flying monkeys that were her parents, friends, etc. Saying that I needed to take responsibility and make an honest woman out of her. I countered that if getting married, especially before the baby was born, was so important to her, then she should have picked a different guy. I also pointed out that I was taking responsibility when I moved in, agreed to pay all the bills because Jane didn't want to work while pregnant, attended the majority of doctor's appointments, all the birthing classes, and built the nursery. Jane was so mad that she stormed out and didn't speak to me until after she'd given birth. That ticked me off, and I demanded a DNA test before signing the birth certificate, and she was so bitter that I wouldn't marry her. By the time Melissa was 5, I had already taken Jane to court 7 times about custody and visitation. Things got slightly better after Jane started dating again, because I would nonchalantly imply that she was still in love with me, and her boyfriend didn't respond well to that. She backed off and wouldn't fight me on my scheduled time. Eventually, the guy gave her a ring, but by then, Melissa was old enough to be vocal about wanting to spend time with me. While I am glad that Jane found a new guy, this man wasn't exactly a prize and always wanted something for nothing. He wanted to be his own man and own a business, and that inherently wasn't bad, but he was just bad at it. When the bank wouldn't give him a loan on his next business venture, he convinced Jane to take a mortgage on her house, and it failed. Jane called me claiming to need more money for our daughter's expenses, and when I asked her for a detailed report, she got upset and tried to guilt-trip me. She said that she would take me to court, but since she'd already gotten an increase 3 months ago, I knew it would get denied. That's when Jane confessed to me about the mortgage, and that if I didn't help, Melissa would lose her home. I countered, saying that so long as I had a roof, Melissa would never be homeless. Cue the flying monkeys again. Then I told her that I would help with the loan payments after she signed over the house to me. I made this offer knowing that she wouldn't accept it, but prepared to do it, because I can say that I tried to help, and so that our daughter won't be in danger of losing her home because of her mom's stupid choices again. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add. My ex made dumb choices and wants me to bail her out without getting anything in return, just because I can, and resent her for trying to use our daughter. 1. As stated in the post, my daughter can just live with me if her mom loses the house. I would never leave my own child homeless. Have no idea where you got that. 2. Yes, the house would be completely in my name, and I would sign it over to my daughter once the mortgage is paid off and she's of age. This is being done so her mom can't ransom the house anymore. 3. Yes, technically my ex would become my tenant if she agreed, and I would also make her sign an agreement or evict her. 4. After years of manipulation, intentional harm, and scheming, I'm indifferent to the idea of my ex suffering. 5. Me saying that she still had feelings for me was, admittedly, a tactic to get her boyfriend turned husband to get her to back off because of the constant hassle she gave me just to spend time with my daughter and maintain my legal rights as a parent. Going through the courts is expensive and takes up a lot of time. This was not about ego. The house is irrelevant. If the house is totally in the ex-wife's name, it is her problem, and possibly that of her new partner. Melissa can live with the OP in my understanding. I suspect that ex and partner can both work. They may need to cash in the house for equity, but they can rent elsewhere. It may not be nice, but it will have a roof. Both OP and ex are in the wrong here, as they still communicate with spite, and their daughter is used as a pawn. OP needs to behave like an adult, as does his ex. For the sake of the child and the shreds of the relationship with the ex, the house should not be in play. Letting them rent from the OP is a manipulative way to keep the ex under some control, and will continue the fighting ad infinitum. And now let's see if the community agrees with me. Helen, 1370 says, "Not the a-hole. Who the duck expects their ex to pay or help out financially beyond the child's money? You have a house. Melissa is 14. She can easily decide that she wants to live with you. Your child won't be homeless. If your ex wants to take Melissa to live on the streets, I suppose it's pretty easy to get the courts to force Melissa to stay with you. You don't need to help her. They can move out, get a job each, and pay a normal rent. No Policy 4095 says, regarding your offer, not the a-hole, you're asking for collateral for the loan, which is reasonable and smart to protect yourself. And at the end of the day, you're right that your daughter will not be homeless over this, and her request is over the top ridiculous. That whole divorce custody situation sounds like a nightmare for your daughter, with both of your petty squabbling. If you don't beat me to it, says. Everyone sucks here, I think. I don't know if there's a better way through this mortgage situation, and it seems like it would have happened with her without you. Nonchalantly imply she was still in love with me? What? Background info. I was adopted by my aunt and uncle at age 2. My biological mother passed away when I was 10. My maternal grandmother passed away when I was 13. I refer to my aunt and uncle as mom and dad, and my cousins as my sisters. J, 27 female, and S, 34 female. My grandmother died at 88 years old. She passed away before she could complete her will. She originally wanted the house to be split between my biological mother and my aunt. This was not written into the will, as it was never completed. When my mother passed away, my grandmother's last wishes were that the house would be split one half to my aunt and the other half between me and my sisters, cousins. There were 3 of us grandchildren. Jay moved into the house soon after my grandmother's passing. She has lived in the house for approximately 8 years and is now married with a child. My family expects me to sign away the rights to my portion of the house to my sister Jay. Jay and brother-in-law are already making alterations to the house and are planning on making additions to it. There was some discussion on buying the house outright. Legally, on paper, half of the house went to my aunt, and I inherited my mother's half of the house. The house, legally, was not split between the 3 grandkids, only my aunt and my mother's heir, that being myself. We found this out when my sister tried to put the house in her name after my grandmother passed. I discovered this when I was 19 due to a slip of the tongue. They intended to keep this information from me until the day I turned 21. What can I do? Edit. They want me to put the names of all 3 grandchildren on the deed, to respect my grandmother's wishes, and that they would pay me my cut. They seem to want to split my half of the house into thirds, and only pay me 1/3 of my half. Edit 2. We live in the USA, in New York. Edit 3. I am a part of my aunt and uncle's estate. I will be getting a portion. I am in their will. As well as knowing my grandmother, I know she most likely would have wanted it to get split 3 ways. My biological mom also died at age 49. Edit 4. My grandmother was a stubborn old woman, and she didn't have a will. The house was just going to go to my aunt and mother, though it wasn't in the will. That's what was going to happen. She didn't care about what would happen after she was gone. But that changed once my mother passed and she fell ill. She said she wanted that half of the house to be given to us 3 grandchildren. Not verbally told me, but it was mentioned a few times when I was younger. She was in the process of having a will made before she passed away not so long after. Edit 5. My sister didn't pay rent. She paid taxes for the 8 years she lived there by giving money to my mother, aunt, though it isn't legally documented. I never knew I owned half the house until a year or so ago. Honestly, this doesn't make sense at all. In this case, half went to OP's aunt and half to OP's mom. In my opinion, if OP's mom dies, that half should go 100% to OP. And if OP's aunt dies, that half should be split between her kids. I think they are definitely lying to OP. No way OP's grandmother would go from half for OP's mom to splitting that half between OP and OP's cousins. Makes no sense since OP's aunt, their mom, already gets the other half. So I think OP should talk to a lawyer and stand her ground. And now let's see if the community has the same opinion as me. Alternate Ego 1 says, remember, you only found out because of a slip of the tongue. Listen to the people here, get a lawyer, listen to them. Tater Biscuit says, if you own half the house legally, you own half the house. They can't make you sign it over. If they look like they're going to fight about it, talk to a lawyer. At least make them buy you out. Mike and Pam Forever says, your name will always be on the deed until you die, or you sign a quit-claim deed. Turning 21 has nothing to do with your name being taken off the deed. It can't be taken from you without your consent at any age. And it sounds like your state requires you to be 21 to enter into a legal contract. No matter what someone's wishes were, they didn't complete a will or trust, so maybe their wishes weren't even really her wishes. You were young and she was very old. Perhaps they manipulated your memory of her to believing she really wanted it to go to someone else, who is now trying to take it from you. Stand your ground. Tell them it is legally half yours and they're altering a home without your consent. They are required to pay you fair market value for your half of the value of the home or equity. If you wait another 10 or 20 years, it'll be worth a lot more too. But it's your call whether you give it away or get what you're legally entitled to. Here are the key details you should know. My son, 23, has always worked very hard and earlier this year purchased a GMC for $30,000. This was a big deal to him because before that he was still driving the old Chrysler he got after his grandma passed away. Second key detail is that my wife and I have been saving for our kids' college when they were young. My son has graduated college and that money has mostly been used up. I think it's about $50,000 that each of them received, or will receive in the case of my daughter who was 16. My son went out of town last weekend to visit friends. That is when this incident went down. Sometime after my wife and I fell asleep on Friday night, my daughter snuck out at night and took his car. My wife and I got a call from the police at close to 3 a.m. telling us that my daughter and 3 friends were in custody after they had run the car up a curb, knocking down a street sign and colliding with a tree. They were speeding recklessly, and to top it all off, my daughter wasn't even driving, but they all had been drinking too. Cars totaled. Since she wasn't the driver, she avoided the DUI, but was charged with underage drinking as well as a curfew violation. I'm going to skip the part where we picked her up from the police station and conversations, because it's not relevant. When my son arrived home, he was crushed. So without thinking anything of it, I told my son to go buy a new one, and I'll be transferring the money from his sister's college fund so he can buy a new one. He wasn't able to find the same great deal on the same year with similar mileage. He used almost $40,000 to get a 2022 model, and I was fine with it. This left his sister's fund with about $15,000 left. It is her dream to go to a big school in the South, which now seems like a pipe dream unless she takes out big loans. Naturally, she's been in hysterics about the college fund and thinking I'm going too hard. She currently hates me, her mom, who is on my side, and brother for spending the money when he could have gotten a cheaper car. Likely, she will need to go to a cheaper school. Most likely go to community college for 2 years first to save money. This broke her because she has been set on the particular school since she was in middle school. She has a lot of clothes and even bed sheets of her dream school, so I understand this is tough on her. In my opinion, she's lucky to be alive after this stunt, so having her college plans change is a small price to pay in my opinion. My sister and some others are very upset with my wife, son, and I, saying that it sucks, but college is more important than the car. The car is bought, the money is spent, the situation is more or less over. So am I an a-hole for this? My daughter is currently spouting the "I'm moving out at 18 and never talking to you again" crap, but her mom and I think that will blow over. Edit. We will make up the extra money taken for son's new car. We had to spend that because what he was looking for was hard to find. But by the time she goes to college, we will have made up that extra money, and I will make that promise to her. Edit 2. So many people bringing up insurance. Here's what my son had to say about that since he spoke to them. He's the only insured driver, so the kid driving wasn't insured. The alcohol is a factor too. The car also wasn't reported stolen, so they can't be sure he didn't give them permission to take it. It's he said, she said. He's getting a few grand back, which is going to daughter's fund. OP's daughter needs to learn that there are consequences for her actions, and OP came up with a solution that is fair to his son. She's lucky she didn't get in more serious trouble. Honestly, this is a pretty lenient punishment all things considered. She can still go to college, she just can't afford her dream school without taking out loans. That's hardly throwing out her whole future. Let's see what the community has to say on the matter. Cantor Circle says, quote, "He could have gotten a cheaper car," end quote. She shouldn't have stolen his car and ruined it. Then none of this would be happening. She should also realize that crap like this can cause her to be rejected from many colleges, including her dream school. Your daughter appears to have missed out on a lot of lessons in personal responsibility and generally being a good person. If I were you, I'd be deeply concerned about the type of person she's going to be in her adult life. Ultimately, she created this situation, and it's fair to require her to rectify it, not the a-hole. D. Wassell 73 says, "Not the a-hole. Your daughter stole her brother's car and was drinking with her friends and wrecked it. I feel that the other teen driving should be held responsible for it also, and should have to pay half of the cost of the new car. I would talk to the other teen's parents and tell them they are half responsible, and as such, they need to pay, or else you'll take them to court." Glad Performer 7531 says, "Not the a-hole. Doesn't sound like the OP's daughter even remotely feels any remorse for what she has done, or even comprehends that not only could this situation have been much worse. She doesn't even seem to care that she stole her brother's vehicle and blames him for not finding a cheaper one. That's some pretty entitled behavior on her part." My ex and I had our son when we were young, and neither of us were at all equipped to become parents. We made the decision to put him up for adoption. The couple that adopted him were very open about keeping communication every now and then to let us know how he's doing and that they'd tell him about us. They eventually moved and lost contact when he was 2. I'm now 33 and have been in a relationship with my fiance for over 2 years. Since we were dating, I always made it known I had a son I gave up for adoption, and there was a chance he'd make contact in the future. She always said she was fine with that, but now my biological son, 18 male, has messaged me wanting to meet, and she was suddenly against it. Apparently, now that it's actually happening, she's having second thoughts and doesn't like the idea of a stranger coming into our lives. We talked about this at length. For one thing, it was possible he doesn't even want me to become a part of his life, and maybe only wants a one-time meeting to ask questions. My fiance was still against me meeting him at all, until I told her this was my decision in the end, and I'd like to meet him. So that's what I did. It was an awkward and somewhat emotional experience, but it was so wonderful to see the young man he grew up to be. In my mind, he was always that 2-year-old I saw in pictures, and now I've gotten the chance to see him all grown up. We met at a park and talked for a long time, learned about his life, answered his questions. He's open to us continuing to talk, and while he's not expecting me to take on a fatherly role in his life, would like it if we got to know each other better. That's where we left off, and when I got home, my fiance was being cold. I had told her ahead of time what day I'd be meeting him. She said she felt hurt that I disregarded her feelings on this and made it seem like what she thought didn't matter. Things have been rocky ever since. She's giving me the silent treatment, and it's starting to make me question if going through with this, knowing she wasn't on board, was an a-hole thing of me to do, just ignoring her feelings on this and going ahead with the meeting. Would like to know what others think. Secret Ratto says, "Not the a-hole, and I would seriously reconsider going through with the marriage. How awful that a romantic partner thinks they have the power to deny a parent from connecting with a child, when parent and child both want to meet. Nothing has even happened. It was just a nice positive meeting with the potential to form a friendly bond. It's utter insanity that the person you are considering spending the rest of your life with feels so okay with trying to control your social circle and connections like this. She hasn't offered any reasons, and the fact is that she lied from the start if she's now suddenly this opposed to you meeting your kid. She needs to start telling you the truth about why she's so against this whole thing, and you need to figure out if this is really the person you want to tie yourself to." DB Koopa says, "Dude, you're not the a-hole at all. This woman in your life views your son as a stranger. That should speak volumes. He's your son, and you're right, it's your decision, and you went through with it. You would have kicked yourself for the rest of your life if you hadn't. Honestly, dude, this chick sounds really crappy to be trying to put her 2 cents in on something that doesn't really even concern her at all. It sounds like she's afraid she'll lose some of your attention, which is selfish as duck. Oh no, there's someone else in his life that might take time away from me. How crappy. What's even worse is she's continuing to be salty about it. I mean, just writing this out is bad. She's mad because your biological son wanted to meet you. If anything, she should have been supportive and encouraged you to go forth with it. At least you were smart enough to realize the importance of such an event on your own.